My name is Sloane Kensington. I am 25 years old. And just weeks before my birthday, I found out my parents stole $187,000 from me. My grandfather left that money in a trust so I could start my firm. My parents drained it to cover my brother's gambling debts. When I confronted her, my mother looked me in the eyes and said he was the only real heir to our family name. I did not scream. I did not cry. I called my grandmother, and what we did next destroyed their fake world. Before we begin, if you connect with this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if it truly speaks to you. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? The numbers on my screen glowed in the dark office. It was 6:45 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday, October 14th, 2023. My office at Harborview Financial sat right above Granby Street in downtown Norfolk, Virginia. Below me, cars splashed through puddles, their red taillights bleeding into the wet roads. I liked auditing. I liked it because numbers never lied. If a company was failing, the ledger showed it. You just had to know where to look. I closed my laptop, the quiet click echoing in the empty room. I am Sloane. I am 25 years old, and I am the quiet one in my family. My phone vibrated on the glass desk. It was a text from my mother, Lorelei. Dinner is at 7:30. Don't be late. Creed has big news. Creed is my older brother. He is 28, tall, with our father's sharp jawline, and an easy smile that could talk a parking ticket out of existence. I packed my bag, feeling a familiar tightness in my chest. Family dinners at my parents' house in the Ghent neighborhood always felt like a stage play. Everyone had a role. Creed was the star. My parents were the cheering audience. I was just the stagehand, moving props in the background. 30 minutes later, I pulled my old Honda Civic into their driveway. The house was a beautiful colonial brick building. The lawn was perfectly cut. Everything looked flawless from the outside. I pushed the heavy oak front door open. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic filled the air. "Sloane, is that you?" my mother called from the kitchen. "Yeah, Mom, it's me," I said, slipping my wet coat off. I walked into the dining room. The table was already set with the good silver plates. My father, Garrison, was pouring wine into Creed's glass. Creed was leaning back in his chair, laughing. "Hey, little sister," Creed said. He didn't get up. He just waved a hand. I noticed his knuckles were white. He was gripping his phone too tight. "Hi, Creed." "Dad," I said, taking my seat at the end of the table. My mother walked in, carrying a large tray. "Oh, good, you made it. We were just talking about Creed's new venture." "Another one." The words slipped out before I could stop them. The room went dead silent for 2 seconds. It was that heavy, uncomfortable kind of quiet. Creed's smile dropped just a millimeter. My father sighed, a low, disappointed sound. "Sloane, please. Your brother is putting together a high-end logistics company. It's a very smart market move. It's just a lot of upfront capital, you know?" Creed said quickly. He leaned forward, looking at my parents, not me. "But the returns?" "Mom, Dad, I'm telling you, by spring we'll be doubling the investment." I quietly scooped mashed potatoes onto my plate. Upfront capital. Creed had tried a luxury watch business 2 years ago, then a real estate app. Both failed. Both times my parents quietly paid off his credit cards. They never talked about it. They just called it bad luck. "You always have such grand ideas, sweetie." My mother smiled, brushing dust off Creed's shoulder. "He's got your grandfather's business mind, Garrison." "He really does," Dad agreed. I ate in silence. I was used to this. This was the toxic equilibrium of our house. As long as Creed was praised, and I stayed out of the way, everything was peaceful. "So," Creed suddenly turned to me. His eyes darted around. "Your birthday is coming up next month. Big 26. "Yeah, November 15th, I said, putting my fork down. "Grandpa Huxley set that trust fund up to unlock on your 26th, right?" Creed asked. His voice sounded casual, too casual. "Like, exactly on the day?" My heart did a slow, weird thump. Grandpa Huxley had passed away 5 years ago. He was the only one who saw me for who I was. Before he died, he set up a trust deed, $187,000. It was specifically for me, to make sure I had a solid start. I had been planning for 3 years. I was going to put a down payment on a small house near the naval base, and use the rest to finally start my own independent audit firm. "Yes," I answered slowly. "Next month. Grandma Zelda called me about it yesterday to make sure the bank details were still the same." I looked up. My mother was staring at my father. It was a very fast look, just a split second, but I saw it. It wasn't a happy look. It looked like panic. My father cleared his throat loudly. Well, money is a private thing at the dinner table. Let's eat. Right, sorry, Creed laughed, but it sounded empty. His legs started bouncing under the table. Tap, tap, tap against the floorboard. I watched Creed's bouncing leg. I watched my mother pushing her food around her plate without eating. My auditor brain started flashing warning signs. People who are safe do not fidget. People who are comfortable do not share secret, panicked looks. Something was wrong. There was a deficit in this room, a hidden debt I couldn't see yet. I just didn't know how deep the hole went. The next morning, Wednesday, October 15th, the rain had stopped, but the sky over Norfolk was still a heavy, bruised gray. I sat at my desk at Harborview Financial. My computer screen showed a spreadsheet for a local shipping company, but the numbers were just a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about Creed's bouncing leg. I couldn't forget the panicked look my mother gave my father. In auditing, we have a rule. When the behavior doesn't match the math, follow the paper trail. At 10:15 a.m., I picked up my phone and called Oceanway National Bank on Bush Street. That was where Grandpa Huxley had set up my trust. Good morning, Oceanway National. How can I help you? A polite voice answered. Hi, my name is Sloane Kensington. I need to check the status of the Huxley Kensington Trust, I said. My voice was steady, but my fingers were tapping against my coffee mug. Tap, 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 just like Creed. The woman on the phone typed for a few seconds. Let me transfer you to Mr. Tobin Vance, our branch manager. Please hold. Holding music played. It was a soft piano tune, but it sounded like a warning alarm in my head. A minute later, Mr. Vance picked up. He knew my family. Sloane, hello, how are you doing today? He asked. He sounded nervous. I am fine, Mr. Vance. I am calling to make sure everything is ready for the trust transfer on my birthday next month. The balance should be exactly $187,000. There was a pause. It wasn't a short pause. It was the kind of dead air that makes your stomach drop to the floor. Sloane, Mr. Vance cleared his throat. I could hear papers shuffling on his desk. Sloane, the current balance of the trust is $412. I stopped breathing. The office around me faded away. Excuse me? There were 3 major withdrawals, Mr. Vance explained softly. One in June for $25,000, one in August for $50,000, and a final wire transfer on October 1st for $111,588. It was sent to an account registered to Apex Logistics. Apex Logistics, Creed's new company. How? I whispered. My throat felt like it was full of sand. That money was mine. Grandpa left it for me. I am so sorry, Sloane, Mr. Vance said gently. But the deed had a standard clause. Until you turned 26, your parents were listed as the legal custodians. Your father used his position as a lawyer to submit fraudulent affidavits and fake promissory notes. He legally categorized the withdrawal as a direct high-yield investment for the beneficiary. Because he was the fiduciary on record, the system bypassed the standard reviews. They came in person and signed the release papers together. I hung up the phone. I didn't say goodbye. I sat completely still for 10 minutes. The cold air conditioning blew on my neck. My $187,000, my house, my firm, my freedom, gone. Stolen by the people who were supposed to protect me, just to pay for Creed's failures. I didn't cry. Auditors don't cry over stolen assets. We audit them. I grabbed my car keys, walked out of my office, and drove straight to my parents' house in Ghent. It was 11:30 a.m. My dad would be at his law firm. Creed would be sleeping in. My mother would be in her garden. I parked my Civic on the curb and walked right through the front door. The house smelled like fresh laundry and expensive vanilla candles. It made me sick. I found my mother in the sunroom. She was wearing a white sweater, carefully watering her orchids with a small copper can. Sloane? She looked surprised, lowering the watering can. What are you doing here in the middle of the workday? Is everything okay? Where is it, Mom? I asked. I didn't yell. My voice was dangerously quiet. Her smile froze. Where is what, honey? The $187,000 from my trust fund, I said, stepping closer. The money you and Dad wired to Creed's fake logistics company 2 weeks ago. Her face turned pale. She put the copper can down on a glass table. It made a sharp clink sound. She looked around, as if someone might be listening, even though it was just us. Sloane, you need to calm down, she started, using her soft, motherly voice. It was an emergency. Creed was in deep debt with some very bad investors from his last business. He could have gone to jail. We only borrowed it. He is going to pay it back by spring. Stop lying, I cut her off. My hands were shaking now, but my eyes were locked on hers. He will never pay it back. He never pays anything back. That was my future, Mom. Grandpa left it for me because he knew you guys would give everything to Creed, and you stole it anyway. My mother's soft face suddenly changed. The fake sweetness melted away. Her back went straight, and her eyes got cold and hard. It was a look I had never seen directed at me before. Watch your tone with me, she snapped, stepping toward me. We provided for you your whole life. You have a good job. You don't need that money like Creed does. Why? I asked, my voice finally cracking. Why is his life always worth more than mine? My mother looked me right in the eyes. She didn't blink. She didn't look sorry. Because, she said coldly, he is the only real heir to our family name. The words hit me like a physical punch to the chest. The room went completely silent. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I didn't say a single word back to her. I just looked at the woman who had raised me, realizing I didn't know her at all. If your parents took $187,000 from you and called it an emergency loan, would you believe them or would you start digging like I did? Tell me in the comments. I turned around and walked out the front door. I got into my car. I didn't start the engine right away. I just pulled out my phone, and with trembling fingers, I called the only person left in the world who could fix this. I called Grandma Zelda. The Bluetooth speaker in my car echoed as the phone rang. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. The sound mixed with the heavy drops of rain starting to hit my windshield again. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers hurt. I was trying to breathe, but the air in the car felt too thin. Sloan? The crisp, sharp voice of my grandmother, Zelda Kensington, filled the car. It is Wednesday afternoon. You never call me during tax season. What is wrong? Grandma Zelda did not do small talk. She was 78 years old, lived in a large oceanfront house in the north end of Virginia Beach, and had a mind sharper than most lawyers. Grandma, I said. My voice cracked. I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting the tears. Auditors deal in facts, I reminded myself. Just give her the facts. The trust fund, the $187,000 Grandpa Huxley left me. It is gone. There was a dead silence on the line. I could hear the faint ticking of a clock in her background. Explain, she commanded. Her voice was suddenly very low and very cold. I called Oceanway National Bank today. I swallowed hard. Mom and Dad used the emergency custodian clause. They emptied it. They wired 111,588 ties to Creed's new company, Apex Logistics, on October 1st. They used the rest to pay off his older debts. Another pause. A meaningful, heavy silence. And what did Lorelei say when you confronted her? Grandma Zelda asked. She knew me too well. She knew I wouldn't just cry in my car without asking why first. She told me Creed needed it more. A single tear, hot and angry, finally rolled down my cheek. She said he is the only real heir to our family name. For 5 seconds, Grandma Zelda said absolutely nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded like ice breaking over a frozen lake. Drive to my house, right now. Do not go back to your apartment. Do not call your father. Okay, I whispered. Sloan, she said, her tone softening just a fraction. Drive safe. We are going to fix this. It took me 45 minutes to drive from Norfolk to Virginia Beach. The gray sky matched the heavy, sinking feeling in my stomach. When I pulled into Grandma Zelda's driveway, the salty ocean breeze hit my face, waking me up. I walked into her house. It smelled like old paper, expensive wood polish, and Earl Grey tea. It was quiet here. No fake laughter. No forced smiles. Grandma Zelda was waiting for me in her study. She was sitting behind a massive oak desk, wearing a dark blue dress, her silver hair pulled back perfectly. Sit down, Sloan. She pointed to the leather chair across from her. I sat. I placed my wet coat on my lap. I felt like a little girl again, completely lost. Your grandfather Huxley was a brilliant man, Grandma Zelda started, folding her hands on the desk. But he had one blind spot. He believed his son, your father, would eventually grow up. He thought giving Garrison control of the family finances until you kids were older was the right thing to do. They stole my future, Grandma. To them I am just a backup plan, a bank account for Creed. Yes, Grandma Zelda nodded slowly, her blue eyes locking onto mine. They are enablers. They have spent their whole lives clapping for a boy who only knows how to break things. But Sloan, stealing from your trust fund means something else. I frowned, my auditor brain slowly waking up. What do you mean? Your father's law firm makes over $400,000 a year, she said quietly. Your mother comes from money. If Creed was in trouble, they could have easily taken out a loan or used their own savings. Why would they take the huge legal risk of draining a protected trust fund? I stared at her. The math suddenly started doing itself in my head. Because, I said slowly, the realization hitting me like cold water. Because they don't have their own money anymore. Their accounts must be empty. A dark, grim smile appeared on Grandma Zelda's face. Exactly. The silent observers, the enablers, always fall into the same hole they dig for their golden child. I suspect your father has been secretly covering Creed's massive debts for years. They are broke, Sloan. Your trust fund was their last life raft. My heart started beating faster. The betrayal wasn't just cruel, it was desperate. It was a cover-up. Grandma Zelda unlocked the bottom drawer of her desk. She pulled out a thick, black leather folder and pushed it across the table toward me. What is this? I asked, looking at the gold lettering on the cover. This is the master ledger for the Kensington family estate, she said. The main trust, the one your father manages for me. It holds over $2 million, or at least it is supposed to. I looked up at her, my hands shaking as I touched the cold leather folder. They think because you are quiet, you are weak, Grandma Zelda said, her voice dripping with absolute authority. They think because I am old, I am blind. You are a financial auditor, Sloan. I am officially hiring you. I want you to tear this family's finances apart piece by piece. Find every secret, find every lie. I looked down at the folder. The hurt and the crying stopped. A new, sharp focus took over. I wasn't just the quiet sister anymore. I will find every single penny, I promised. It was Thursday, October 23rd. 1 week had passed since the terrible dinner at my parents' house. I was sitting at the small kitchen table in my apartment in Ocean View. It was 11:45 p.m. The only sound was the low hum of my refrigerator and the rain hitting the window. My phone lit up on the counter. Mom. Sloan, you haven't answered my calls in a week. Please stop being so dramatic. We are family. Come over for Sunday lunch. I stared at the text. Dramatic. That was the word they always used to make my feelings seem small. I didn't reply. I just flipped the phone face down. That was my new boundary. I was in exile now, and I chose to stay there. I turned my attention back to my laptop. The black leather folder Grandma Zelda gave me was open next to my keyboard. Papers were spread everywhere. In my profession, we say that money never truly disappears. It just puts on a mask and changes its name. If you want to find a thief, you don't look at what they took. You look at where they tried to hide it. For the last 7 nights, I had been working in secret. During the day, I audited corporate companies at Harborview Financial. At night, I audited my own father. Grandma Zelda's estate was massive. Garrison, my father, was a lawyer. He had legal power of attorney to manage her properties and her stock portfolio. A normal management fee for a family estate is around 1% to 2% a year. But as I looked at the bank statements from the last 3 years, the numbers made me feel sick. On March 14, 2022, my father moved $35,000 from Grandma's account to his own. He labeled it Property Maintenance Menace Ghent House. On August 9, 2023, he moved $62,000. He labeled it Legal Consulting Fees. On January 3, 2023, he moved $80,000. He labeled it Estate Tax Provision. None of these were real expenses. I had checked the tax records. The taxes were already paid directly from another account. My father was slowly bleeding his own mother's estate dry. But why did he need over $170,000 in cash? My parents were rich, or at least they were supposed to be. I rubbed my tired eyes and opened a public database used by financial auditors. I typed in my parents' address, 442 Wolverton Court, Ghent. I pulled up the property deed. When the page loaded, I stopped breathing for a second. There it was, the ugly hidden truth. On May 10th of last year, my parents had secretly taken out a second mortgage on their beautiful, perfect brick house. They had borrowed $250,000 against their own home. They were not rich anymore. They were drowning. I picked up my phone and called Grandma Zelda. I knew she was awake. She was an old woman who slept very little. She answered on the second ring. Tell me you found the leak, Sloan. I found a flood, Grandma, I said. My voice was raspy from not talking for hours. Dad has been overcharging your estate by hundreds of thousands of dollars using fake legal and maintenance fees. But that is not all. They have a second mortgage on their house. They are completely out of cash. I heard the scratch of a match over the phone, followed by a slow exhale. Grandma Zelda was smoking one of her rare thin cigarettes. She only did that when she was going to war. Where did the money go, Sloane? She asked. Her voice was deadly calm. I don't have Creed's personal bank records, I explained, clicking my pen. But I found a $45,000 wire transfer from Dad's account to a company called Crescent Recovery. It is a high-risk debt collection agency. They deal with underground gambling debts and severe legal settlements. Creed's failed businesses aren't just bad luck, Grandma. He is gambling, or he is in trouble with very dangerous people. And your parents are emptying the ocean to put out his fire, Grandma Zelda finished the thought. Even if it means stealing your future. Yes, I whispered. A heavy sadness washed over me. They stole my $187,000 because they had literally nothing else left to give him. It was an act of total desperation. Do not feel sorry for them, Sloane, Grandma Zelda said sharply. Pity is a useless emotion in business. They made their choice. They chose the son who destroys over the daughter who builds. They thought they could use my money and your money to hide his sins. What do we do now? I asked. I felt a strange warmth in my chest. For the first time in my life, someone was on my side. Grandma Zelda saw my value. We were a team. We keep digging, she commanded. I want the exact total of every dollar Garrison stole from my ledger. In 3 weeks it is your 26th birthday. Your mother always throws a large family dinner for birthdays, doesn't she? Yes. She loves putting on a show for the extended family. Good, Grandma Zelda said. I could almost hear her cold smile through the phone. Let her plan the party. We are going to bring the fireworks. Go to sleep, Sloane. Tomorrow we hunt for the rest. She hung up. I closed my laptop. The toxic mask my family wore was starting to crack, and I was going to be the one to shatter it completely. It was Monday, October 27th. The morning sun was bright, but the autumn air in Norfolk was freezing. I walked into the Harborview Financial Building at exactly 8:15 a.m. I held my coffee cup tight to warm my hands. My new team was small, just Grandma Zelda and me, but I needed one more person. I needed someone who could see through digital walls. I took the elevator to the 4th floor. I walked past my desk and headed straight for room 402, the Forensic Data Division. Ledger Brooks sat in the corner. He was 32, wore wrinkled flannel shirts, and had a desk covered in empty Red Bull cans and yellow sticky notes. Ledger was the best forensic accountant in Virginia. We had worked on 2 big corporate fraud cases together. He respected my math, and I respected his computer skills. Ledger, I said, stepping into his cubicle. He didn't look away from his double monitors. Sloane, you are here early. If this is about the shipping company audit, I haven't finished the tax forms yet. It is not about work, I said quietly. I looked around. The office was still mostly empty. I need a personal favor. Off the books, no client code. Ledger finally stopped typing. He spun his chair around and looked at me. His eyes were sharp behind his thick glasses. Personal favors in a financial firm usually mean someone is in trouble, Ledger said. His voice was careful. Who are we looking at? I handed him a piece of paper. On it, I had written 2 names. Apex Logistics LLC and Crescent Recovery. I need to know everything about these 2 companies, I said. Who owns them? Where their money goes? Especially any large wire transfers made in the first week of October. Ledger looked at the paper. He frowned. Crescent Recovery? That name sounds like trouble, Sloane. Look, I shouldn't even be running searches without a legal warrant. Please, Ledger, I said. My voice was completely flat, but I looked him right in the eyes. Someone stole my entire life savings, my own family. I just need to prove where it went. Ledger's face softened. He knew I was the quiet girl who never asked for help. He took the paper. Give me until lunch, he sighed, turning back to his keyboards. Don't tell the boss. At 1:45 p.m., my office phone rang. Come to room 402, Ledger said. He hung up immediately. My heart did a hard, fast jump against my ribs. I walked quickly down the carpeted hallway. When I walked into Ledger's cubicle, he looked stressed. He was rubbing his forehead. Sit down, he pointed to the spare chair. He didn't sound friendly anymore. He sounded worried. I sat. What did you find? Ledger pointed to his left screen. Apex Logistics is a ghost, Sloane. It is a fake shell company registered in Delaware. They have 0 trucks. They have no warehouse lease, no employee payroll. It exists only on paper. My stomach tightened. And the money? On October 1st, a wire transfer of exactly $111,588 came into the Apex account. Ledger clicked his mouse, highlighting a line of green text. 48 hours later, on October 3rd, That exact same amount was bounced to an offshore holding account in the Cayman Islands. They are washing the money. I felt a cold sweat on my neck. What about Crescent Recovery? Ledger's face got very serious. That is the scary part. Crescent Recovery is not a normal debt collector. They are a front for high-stakes underground sports betting in Atlantic City. Whoever you are tracking owes them a massive amount of money, over $500,000. They use companies like Apex Logistics to funnel the illegal gambling debts so it looks like clean corporate expenses. Creed. He wasn't just a bad businessman. He was a severe gambling addict in deep trouble with dangerous people. Sloan. Ledger leaned forward, lowering his voice. Who set up Apex Logistics? Because whoever's name is on that LLC registration just committed federal wire fraud. If the FBI finds this, that person is going to federal prison. Pull up the LLC registration papers for Apex, I whispered. My hands were shaking, but I forced them flat on my knees. Ledger typed quickly. A scanned PDF document appeared on the right screen. It was the official state registration for Apex Logistics. I looked at the bottom of the page. Under the section titled Registered Agent and Primary Owner, there was a dummy director's name, but Ledger had pulled the digital metadata and the notarized filing receipt. It was stamped and authorized by a specific notary. I knew that stamp and the authorizing signature next to it. I had seen it on my college loans. Garrison Kensington, my father. He didn't just steal my trust fund to save Creed. He used his law firm's trust account, his OLTA, to fund it, and his office IP address to register a fake company to help Creed launder money for an illegal gambling ring. Oh my God, Ledger breathed out, reading the name. He looked at me, realizing exactly who it was. Sloan, your dad? Print it, I said. My voice didn't even sound like my own. It sounded like Grandma Zelda's, cold, hard, and final. Sloan, you can't just take this. Print every single page, Ledger, I snapped, my mask finally breaking. I want the wire transfers, the LLC papers, the Cayman Island routing numbers, everything. Ledger didn't argue anymore. He hit print. The machine hummed, spitting out 30 pages of undeniable solid proof. I gathered the warm papers and put them in a plain brown folder. My parents thought I was just the quiet, weak stagehand. They thought they could silence me with the word family. They were wrong. They had handed me the exact weapon I needed. That evening, the rain in Norfolk finally stopped, leaving the streets slick and black under the streetlights. I drove straight from the office to Grandma Zelda's house in Virginia Beach. The brown folder sat on my passenger seat like a live bomb. I parked in her circular driveway and let myself in. The house was quiet, smelling of lemon polish and old wood. I found Grandma Zelda in the large living room, sitting by an unlit fireplace, drinking black tea. You look like you have seen a ghost, Sloan, she said, her sharp blue eyes locking onto me as I walked in. Worse, I replied, dropping the brown folder onto the glass coffee table. I found a criminal. Grandma Zelda set her teacup down carefully. She didn't rush. She opened the folder and put on her reading glasses. The silence in the room stretched for 10 long minutes. The only sound was the rustle of the thick printer paper as she turned page after page. I watched her face. Grandma Zelda was a woman made of iron, but when she reached the LLC registration page with my father's signature, Garrison Kensington, her jaw tightened and a muscle in her cheek twitched. He signed it, she whispered. It wasn't a question. It was the sound of a mother realizing her son was completely broken. Yes, I said softly, sitting on the edge of the sofa. Apex Logistics is a shell company. Ledger tracked the $111,588 they stole from me. It went straight from Apex into an offshore account in the Cayman Islands to pay a gambling syndicate called Crescent Recovery. Creed isn't a failed businessman, Grandma. He is a degenerate gambler. Grandma Zelda slowly took off her glasses. She looked at the papers, then at me. Her expression was unreadable, a terrifying calm before a storm. And Garrison, she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, used his legal standing to set up the shell company to launder the stolen money, to protect the golden boy. If the FBI or the IRS audits that LLC, I swallowed hard. Dad will lose his law license. He will go to federal prison for wire fraud and money laundering. The room fell silent again. This was the ultimate betrayal. My parents hadn't just stolen my future. They had risked our entire family name, everything my grandfather built, to cover up Creed's addiction. They have lost their minds, Grandma Zelda said finally. She closed the folder. She didn't look sad anymore. She looked like a general preparing for war. What do we do now? I asked. My hands were finally steady. I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. "We wait," she said smoothly. "Lorelai called me this morning. She is planning a grand family dinner for your 26th birthday on November 15th. She invited all the aunts, uncles, and family friends. She wants to present the perfect family picture." I frowned. She wants to pretend nothing happened. She thinks because I haven't yelled or screamed, I have accepted it. Exactly, Grandma Zelda smiled. But it was a cold, sharp smile. "Let them build their stage, Sloane. Let Lorelai polish the silver and Garrison pour the wine. Let Creed smile and act like the successful heir." She tapped her finger on the brown folder. "On the night of your birthday," she continued, her voice ringing with absolute authority, "we will walk into that dining room, and you, Sloane, are going to present your audit." A shiver went down my spine, but it wasn't from cold. It was anticipation. "I have some calls to make tomorrow," Grandma Zelda said, standing up. "Garrison thinks he controls my estate. He is about to learn that you do not steal from a Kensington and expect to keep your hands." "What are you going to do?" I asked, looking up at her. "I am going to quietly change my legal power of attorney," she said, her eyes flashing, "and I am going to freeze every single account Garrison has access to. By the time November 15th arrives, they will be entirely trapped, and they won't even know it." She looked at me, a genuine look of pride crossing her stern face. "You did good work today, Sloane," she said softly. "You are more like Huxley than any of them." I nodded, feeling the weight of the last 2 weeks finally shift. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the auditor, and the final bill was due. It was Tuesday, November 4th, 11 days until my 26th birthday. At exactly 10 a.m., I sat at Grandma Zelda's heavy dining table. The morning sun shined through the large windows, but the mood in the room was strictly business. Across from us sat Mr. Cyrus Langdon. He was an older lawyer with a neat gray beard, a trusted friend of my late Grandpa Huxley. He worked for a private law firm in Richmond, completely unconnected to my father's network. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Zelda?" Mr. Langdon asked. He pushed a thick stack of papers across the polished wood table. "More certain than I have been about anything in 5 years, Cyrus," Grandma Zelda said firmly. Mr. Langdon nodded. He handed her a black pen. "Sign here, and here. This document is a strict legal revocation of power of attorney. And this second document is a judge-approved emergency injunction. Banks do not freeze accounts just because someone asks them to, but they cannot ignore a court order. The moment my office files this at 1 p.m. today, Garrison will no longer have any legal right to touch the Kensington estate." Grandma Zelda signed her name with fast, sharp strokes. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It sounded like a sword coming out of its holder. "And the bank accounts?" I asked, looking at the papers. "Already handled, Sloane." Mr. Langdon looked at me, tapping a second folder. "I have served the injunction directly to Oceanway National Bank. The $2 million estate is now completely frozen to outside transfers. Only Zelda, and you as the newly named secondary trustee, can authorize a withdrawal. If Garrison tries to move even $1, the system will instantly block it." "Will the bank call him to tell him?" I asked, my auditor mind checking for leaks. "No," Mr. Langdon replied. "Standard bank policy for security freezes is to send a physical letter in the mail. It will take at least 7 to 10 business days for the notice to arrive at his office. Or, he will find out the hard way when he tries to use his estate debit card." "Perfect," Grandma Zelda said, closing the folder. "Let him hit the brick wall." 3 days later, on Friday, November 7th, the brick wall hit hard. It was 6:30 p.m. I was in my small kitchen, boiling water for pasta. My apartment was quiet. Then, my phone vibrated on the counter. The screen showed Creed's name. I stared at it for a long moment. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. "Hello?" I said. My voice was calm and flat. "Hey, Sloane, little sister." Creed's voice came through the speaker. It was too loud, too energetic, but underneath the fake excitement, I could hear a slight shake in his breath. I also heard the clink of ice in a glass. He was drinking. "Hi, Creed. What do you want?" I asked. I didn't use any warmth. There was a tiny, meaningful pause. He wasn't used to me sounding so cold. "Ouch, straight to business. I respect that," he laughed, but it sounded forced. "Listen, Sloane. I'm in a tiny bit of a situation here. Just a stupid bank glitch with the new Apex Logistics accounts. They put a temporary hold on my cards for a security check. It's so annoying." I slowly turned off the stove. The boiling water stopped bubbling. The room went dead silent. "A glitch," I repeated. "Yeah, completely normal corporate stuff," Creed said quickly. His words were rushing out now. "But the thing is, I have to pay the rent for my luxury apartment by midnight tonight, or they charge a massive late fee. Could you spot your big brother $2,000? Just until Monday. I swear I'll wire it right back. He was desperate. Grandma Zelda's trap had worked. Dad couldn't pull money from the estate to save him this time. The gambling syndicate, Crescent Recovery, was probably squeezing Creed dry, and now he couldn't even pay his own rent. I can't, Creed, I said softly. Come on, Sloan. His voice changed. The fake charm vanished. He sounded annoyed now. You have a great job. You definitely have $2,000 sitting around. Don't be selfish. I am not being selfish, I said, leaning against the counter. I just don't have it. What do you mean you don't have it? Creed snapped. Dad said you're just throwing a tantrum because of the trust fund thing. Look, we told you, I needed that money to secure a massive deal. You're getting it back in the spring. Stop being such a dramatic brat and help your family out. Dramatic. Brat. Selfish. The words didn't hurt me anymore. They just sounded pathetic. He had stolen $187,000 from me, and he was yelling at me for not giving him $2,000 more. I can't help you, Creed, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. Call Dad. He always fixes your messes. Dad's cards are declining too, you idiot, Creed yelled, his panic finally breaking through. Something is wrong with the bank. I need the cash tonight, Sloan. They are going to... He stopped himself. He realized he was saying too much. Who is going to what, Creed? I asked, my tone sharp and dark. Are the investors from Atlantic City getting angry? The line went completely dead. He hung up. I put my phone down. A cold, hard energy filled my chest. Step by step, the toxic equilibrium was breaking. They were out of money. They were out of time. And in exactly 8 days, they would be out of secrets. The days moved slowly. It was Thursday, November 13th, 2 days before my birthday. 2 days before the dinner, my phone rang while I was auditing a payroll file for a shipping company. It was my mother. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. I hadn't spoken to her since the day I walked out of her sunroom. 10 minutes later, my office phone rang. The receptionist's voice came through the speaker. Sloan, your mother is in the lobby. She says it's an emergency. My stomach tightened. I closed my laptop, walked out of my office, and took the elevator down to the first floor. My mother, Lorelei, was pacing near the front doors. She looked perfect, as always. She wore a tailored gray coat and carried an expensive leather handbag, but her hands were gripping the strap so hard her knuckles were white. Mom, what are you doing here? I asked, stopping 5 feet away from her. She turned quickly. Her face was tight with stress, but she forced a bright, desperate smile. Sloan, thank goodness, you never answer your phone. I needed to see you. I am working, I said flatly. I know, she stepped closer, lowering her voice. But Saturday is your birthday dinner. I have invited everyone. Aunt Tamsin, Uncle Thatcher, the Mercer family. It is going to be beautiful. I told you I wasn't coming, I said. Sloan, please, her voice cracked slightly. She looked around the lobby to make sure no one was listening. You have to come. Creed is having a very hard time right now. His new business is facing some unexpected hurdles. Your father has been very stressed. We just need one night where everything looks normal, for the family. For the family. It was the same old song. She didn't care about my birthday. She just needed me to play my role. She needed the quiet stagehand to stand in the background so Creed's show could go on. Is Dad stressed because Creed's business is failing? I asked quietly, looking right into her eyes. Or is he stressed because his bank cards are declining? My mother physically stepped back. The fake smile vanished. Panic flashed in her eyes. What are you talking about? Your father's cards are fine. It is just a bank error. She was lying, and she was bad at it. Okay, Mom, I said smoothly. I didn't push it. I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to build the stage. I will come to the dinner on Saturday. Relief washed over her face. She reached out and touched my arm. Oh, thank you, Sloan. Thank you. Wear that nice blue dress, okay? And please, let's just keep things peaceful. No drama. I promise, Mom, I said, stepping back from her touch. I will bring exactly what this family deserves. She didn't hear the warning in my voice. She just heard the word promise. She nodded quickly and hurried out the glass doors. That evening, I drove to Grandma Zelda's house. The brown folder was now thick with documents. We sat at the large dining table, organizing the papers. Lorelei came to my office today, I told Grandma Zelda, sliding a copy of the Apex Logistics LLC registration into a clear plastic sleeve. She begged me to come to the dinner. She wants everything to look normal for the extended family. Excellent, Grandma Zelda said. She was organizing the bank statements, highlighting the stolen money with a yellow marker. The more people watching, the harder it is for them to hide. Are you ready for this, Grandma? I asked, looking up at her. When we show this to the family, Dad will be ruined. The law firm will probably fire him. Creed might go to jail. Grandma Zelda stopped highlighting. She looked at me. The soft ocean breeze blew through the open window, but the air between us felt heavy and serious. Huxley built this family on honesty and hard work, she said softly. Garrison and Lorelei built their version of the family on lies, enabling, and theft. If we do not burn their fake world down, they will drag you down with them. They stole your future, Sloane. I will not let them steal your peace. I nodded. The fear was completely gone. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I was the auditor of the Kensington family. Here is the plan for Saturday, Grandma Zelda said, pointing to the documents. We do not yell, we do not cry, we deal in facts. When the dinner reaches its peak, when Garrison makes his grand toast, we serve the audit. I have the offshore routing numbers ready, I said, tapping my laptop. And the proof that Creed's investors are a gambling syndicate. Good, Grandma Zelda stood up. Put everything in the black leather folder. We are going to a birthday party, Sloane, and we are bringing the truth. The air in the house on Wolverton Court felt thick, like the moments right before a thunderstorm. It was Saturday, November 15th, 7:45 p.m., my 26th birthday. I stood in the hallway, wearing the dark blue dress my mother had asked for. I didn't feel like a guest. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. The dining room was loud with laughter and the clinking of expensive wine glasses. I held the thick black leather folder tightly against my side. Grandma Zelda stood next to me. She wore a sharp black suit. She looked like a judge about to deliver a final sentence. She gave me a single, slow nod. We walked into the dining room together. The room was packed. Aunt Tamsin, Uncle Thatcher, the Mercer family, and several of my parents' wealthy friends were seated around the long polished table. Crystal chandeliers shined brightly above them. At the head of the table sat my father, Garrison. He looked tired. Deep bags shadowed his eyes, but he wore a fake wide smile. My mother, Lorelei, was busy pouring water, laughing too loudly at a joke Uncle Thatcher told, and there was Creed. He sat near Dad, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than my first car. He was holding a glass of scotch, his hands shaking slightly. Ah, the birthday girl. Uncle Thatcher cheered as he saw me. Happy 26th, Sloane. The room clapped. My mother rushed over, her fake smile glued perfectly to her face. Sloane, darling. You look beautiful. Come, sit. She tried to guide me toward an empty chair at the far end of the table, away from the important guests. I am fine standing for a moment, Mom, I said smoothly. My voice was calm, but loud enough to cut through the chatter. My father stood up, holding his wine glass high. Well, since our guest of honor is finally here, I would like to propose a toast. The room went quiet. Everyone looked at him. To family, my father said, his voice deep and warm, exactly like a lawyer presenting to a jury. To the bonds that hold us together through thick and thin. To my brilliant son, Creed, who is launching his new logistics empire this year. And of course, to my quiet but hardworking daughter, Sloane. Happy birthday. Hear, hear, the guests echoed. Creed smiled, lifting his glass. But as his eyes met mine, his smile slipped. He saw the black leather folder in my hands. Thank you, Dad, I said. I didn't smile back. I walked slowly toward the center of the table. Every eye followed me. Since it is my birthday, and we are talking about family bonds, I actually brought something to share with everyone. My mother's face tightened. Sloane, maybe we should just eat first. No, Lorelei, Grandma Zelda spoke up. Her voice was sharp and clear. Let the girl speak. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. When Zelda Kensington spoke, nobody argued. I placed the black leather folder gently onto the polished wood of the dining table. I didn't rush. I opened it, the soft click of the metal rings echoing in the sudden silence. Last month, I started, my voice steady, projecting to the back of the room. I checked the status of the trust fund Grandpa Huxley left for me, the $187,000 I was supposed to receive today. The money I was going to use to buy my first home and start my own audit firm. Uncle Thatcher frowned. Supposed to. I pulled out the first piece of paper, the bank statement from Oceanway National, and slid it down the table toward Uncle Thatcher. The account is empty, I said simply, because on October 1st, my parents used a legal loophole to drain the entire $187,000. A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Aunt Tamsin put her hand over her mouth. My father's face turned completely white. His jaw worked silently for a second before he found his voice. Sloane, this is highly inappropriate. We can discuss private family finances later. You stole my money in private, Dad, I interrupted, my voice perfectly level. But you are going to explain it in public. It was a temporary loan, my mother cried out, her perfect mask shattering. She looked around at her friends, panic rising in her voice. We had an emergency. Creed's new company needed capital. We were going to pay it back. Apex Logistics, I said the name clearly. I pulled out the second document, Ledger's forensic report, and held it up. That is the name of Creed's new company, right? The one that needed the capital. Creed stood up so fast his chair tipped over and crashed backward onto the floor. Shut up, Sloane. Don't you dare. Sit down, boy, Grandma Zelda commanded, her voice cracking like a whip. Creed froze, looking terrified. I slid the forensic report onto the table next to the bank statement. Apex Logistics has 0 trucks, 0 employees. It is a fake shell company registered in Delaware, I continued, speaking directly to the silent, shocked room. The 111,588 Barresthalmslanwadabenent, that the Lupitabidaid Saham Toperninwamsing. 2 days later it was sent to an offshore holding account in the Cayman Islands, and from there it went straight to Crescent Recovery. I looked directly at Creed. He looked sick. Tell them what Crescent Recovery is, Creed, I demanded quietly. He didn't speak. He just stared at the floor, breathing heavily. They are a front for an illegal sports betting syndicate in Atlantic City, I answered for him. My brother is a gambling addict with $500,000 in debt to very dangerous people. The business ventures you all praised him for over the last 3 years were just ways to hide his losses. The silence in the dining room was absolute. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The fake, perfect world my parents had built was burning down right in front of them, fueled by their own secrets. But I wasn't finished. I pulled out the final document, the LLC registration. And the worst part, I said, my voice dropping to a harsh whisper as I looked at my father, is how you used your own law firm to do it. I slid the paper across the smooth wood until it stopped right in front of my father's empty plate. You used your Ulta Trust account to fund it, and your office IP address and notary stamp to register it, Dad, I said. You committed federal wire fraud to protect him. The grand toast was over. The audit was served. The paper with my father's signature sat on the dining table. It was just one piece of paper, but it felt like a bomb that had just exploded. For 10 seconds nobody made a sound. Then, chaos broke out. Garrison, is this true? Uncle Thatcher stood up, his face red with shock and anger. He was a partner at Dad's law firm. Did you use your legal license to set up a shell company? My father didn't answer him. He was staring at his own signature on the LLC registration. His hands were shaking violently. He looked like an old, broken man. Sloane, how could you? My mother screamed. She burst into tears, grabbing the edge of the table. We are your family. We provided for you. You are ruining us in front of everyone. I didn't ruin you, Mom, I said smoothly. I didn't raise my voice. I stayed perfectly calm, just like an auditor presenting facts in a boardroom. You ruined yourselves. You took out a $250,000 second mortgage on this house last May. You have been quietly bleeding money for years to cover Creed's debts. And when you finally ran out of your own money, you stole mine. Aunt Tamsin gasped, covering her mouth. The wealthy family friends who usually praised my parents were now whispering to each other, looking at them with disgust. Creed was backed against the wall. He pointed a shaking finger at me. You think you are so smart, Sloane. You don't know what those people would have done to me. They were going to hurt me. Dad had to help me. So my future was the price for your mistakes? I asked coldly. You stole my $187,000, Creed. But it wasn't enough, was it? That is why you called me last week begging for $2,000 to pay your rent. The syndicate is still squeezing you. Creed's eyes went wide. He looked at my father. Dad, she knows. She tracked the Cayman accounts. My father finally looked up. His eyes were completely empty. He didn't look at Creed. He looked past me, straight at Grandma Zelda, who was still standing quietly by the door. Mother, he whispered, please. It was just a temporary fix. I was going to sell some of the estate properties next month to pay it all back, to replace Sloane's money. Grandma Zelda stepped forward into the light of the chandelier. Her face was like stone. You are a fool, Garrison, she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a knife. You thought you could steal from your own daughter and cover it up by stealing from me. My mother stopped crying and looked confused. Stealing from you? What are you talking about, Zelda? Grandma Zelda pulled a single sheet of paper from her pocket and dropped it onto the table. It was the legal revocation of power of attorney. Since 2022, Garrison has siphoned over $170,000 from the Kensington estate using fake legal and maintenance fees, Grandma Zelda announced to the room. He used my money to pay Crescent Recovery. So, last Tuesday, I legally revoked his power of attorney. My father let out a choked, desperate sound. He grabbed the paper. And, Grandma Zelda continued, her eyes locking onto my father's, I froze the entire $2 million estate. You are locked out, Garrison. You have no cash. You have a second mortgage you cannot pay. And you have a son who owes dangerous people money you do not have. You froze the accounts? My father stammered. The reality of his situation was finally hitting him. The toxic equilibrium was completely dead. There was no more money to hide behind. Yes, Sloane is now the secondary trustee of the Kensington estate, Grandma Zelda said proudly. She is the only one who can authorize a withdrawal. She is the auditor you never saw coming. The room was completely silent again. The family friends started standing up, quietly grabbing their coats. They didn't want to be in the middle of a federal crime scene. Uncle Thatcher looked at my father with absolute disgust. Garrison, Uncle Thatcher said coldly. Do not come into the law firm on Monday. I am calling an emergency meeting with the partners. If you committed wire fraud, you are done. My mother sank into her chair, putting her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. The stage play was over. The audience was leaving in horror. Creed stood by the wall, looking completely broken and terrified. I looked at the three of them. I thought I would feel happy, or vindicated, but I just felt tired. I closed the black leather folder. The money you stole from me is gone, I said quietly, looking at my parents. I accept that. But I am not the quiet stagehand anymore. I am done. I turned around and walked toward the front door. I didn't look back. The air outside was cold, but it felt cleaner than anything I had breathed in years. I had lost my $187,000, but I had finally found my voice. The front door of my parents' house closed behind me with a heavy, final click. It was over. I stood on the porch in the freezing November air. The sound of my mother's sobbing was cut off completely. Grandma Zelda walked out a few seconds later. She stood next to me, adjusting her black coat. She looked at the closed door, then at the dark street. They will blame you, you know, she said quietly. People who live in the dark always hate the person who turns on the light. I know, I said. I looked down at the black leather folder in my hands. It was the only thing I was taking with me from this family. But the math is right, and the math is all that matters now. We walked to our cars in silence. When I got into my old Civic, I sat in the driver's seat for a long time. I watched the remaining guests hurry out of my parents' house, their heads down, whispering frantically. Uncle Thatcher practically ran to his Mercedes. The perfect family image was completely destroyed. The next few months were chaotic, but not for me. By December 2023, Uncle Thatcher forced my father out of the law firm. They gave him a quiet resignation to avoid a public scandal, but his career as a respected lawyer in Norfolk was finished. Without his income, and with the estate accounts completely frozen by Grandma Zelda, my parents couldn't pay their second mortgage. In February 2024, the bank issued a formal notice of default on the perfect brick house in Ghent. To avoid being sued for the remaining balance, my parents had to agree to a rapid short sale, losing all their equity. By March, they had to move into a small rented apartment in Chesapeake. As for Creed, the real world finally caught him. Without Dad to pay off the syndicate, Crescent Recovery stopped playing nice. In late January, Creed was arrested in Atlantic City for writing a series of bad checks to cover his gambling debts. My father tried to call me to ask for money for Creed's bail. I didn't answer. I just blocked the number. That was the new boundary. Blood meant nothing if there was no loyalty. I sometimes wonder if your parents did this to you and they never once said they were sorry. Even with all the evidence laid out on the dining table, even with their lies exposed, could you forgive them, or would you hold the line? I do not have the answer yet. Maybe I never will, but I would really like to know what you think. Would you forgive or would you protect your boundary? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. By the spring of 2024, the season Creed promised he would double the investment. His fake company, Apex Logistics, was flagged by the IRS. The federal investigation is still ongoing. I focused entirely on my own rebuilding. Grandma Zelda paid me a standard 2% management fee for auditing and protecting the Kensington estate. It wasn't the $187,000 I lost, but it was honest money. I kept working my day job at Harborview Financial, saving every single paycheck. It is now late April 2024. The weather in Virginia is finally getting warm. I am sitting in a small, bright office space in downtown Norfolk. It has exposed brick walls and a large window overlooking Granby Street. I just signed the lease today. On the glass door, the painter has just finished stenciling the letters. Kensington Independent Auditing. My phone buzzes on my new desk. It is a text from Ledger. Got a big corporate fraud case. You in? I smile. I type back. Send me the ledger. I lost my trust fund, but I didn't lose my future. I just had to build it myself, brick by brick, without them. The quiet sister is gone. The auditor is here to stay. If this story made you feel something, please hit subscribe and tap that notification bell so you do not miss what is coming next. And if you have ever dealt with a family member who took something that was yours, money, trust, your sense of belonging, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and so does this community. There is another story linked in the description about a daughter who uncovered her sister's massive wedding fraud right before the ceremony started. The way she handled it, you will want to see how that one ends. I will see you there.